Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to the fifth part of What If Time Travel Was a One-Way Ticket, where we look at how future Trunks and the timeline would have changed if he went into the past knowing that it was a one-way trip. In the last part, we minced around with both Vegeta and Lazuli, once Android 18, having both been overtaken by Bobbidi's magic. Gohan eventually took out Dabura, Buu hatched, Vegeta saw the truth of his son and wife, and Goku saw his cue to leave, having been careful not to injure the seemingly insane Lazuli, while struggling to not get pulverized himself. Trunks, still covered in bits of sick, picks Lazuli up and heads into the building. When he looks back at Lapis, the man is standing there, unmoving, staring blankly at where Lazuli had collapsed. In his hand is a small box with a big red button in the middle. What? Where'd he get one of those? Trunks can't even remember what he'd done with them. He decides to leave Lapis standing there for now and makes his way into Bulma's lab. After gently setting Zuli down on a workbench, he checks with his mum that the lab will block the signal, then brushes the hair from Lazuli's face before heading back outside to reactivate Lapis. Yeah, so where'd you get that? Oh, when Lapis had awoken from his statue, he'd first gone with Piccolo to find Gohan, then, failing that, and hearing from Dende that Lazuli was having a go at Goku for some reason, along with Vegeta versus Trunks, he'd broken off to first grab his remote, and then went to look for her. Heading first to Capsule Corp, which was closer to the remote's hiding spot, on top of Trunks' apartment block, he hit pay dirt. Yeah, okay, but where'd he get it in the first place? Yeah, that. She found them a couple of years ago, when they'd finally stopped circling each other like a couple of scared puppies, and she'd spent the night. She might have poked around a bit the next morning while tidying up after Trunks had rushed off late for his classes. Oh man, was she pissed when she found them. She'd called her brother over and, feeling a bit betrayed, was about to call it quits with Trunks, but they'd had a talk about it, and the fact that the remotes were buried under other junk in a dust-covered box in the back of his closet meant they were likely discarded and forgotten about. After stewing on it for a while, she made up her mind. They should each take one and hide it somewhere, just in case something went wrong. They trust each other, that went without saying, but if they couldn't trust Trunks at this point, then who else could they? Trunks can remember rushing out that morning quite flustered, then coming home to find that she'd left. Not a word for a week, and then that incredibly awkward phone call she'd finally answered. He'd thought he'd done or said something stupid, or maybe she'd freaked out and bolted. I guess kinda both, huh? Bulma then interrupts, calling them to come inside. With an oddly cheerful look on her face, she says that she has, news. Well, 3 things actually. First, that Kill Son Goku code she deleted? Yeah, it's back, despite being completely overwritten. The previous firmware had somehow been reinstalled over the current. But that's fine, she's rewritten it, and also made a new version of the bootloader that's encrypted, so that can't happen again. Once that's applied, they should get all sorts of alarm bells in their heads if anyone tries to access it. Next, Lazuli's been running a bit hot. Her cells were putting out way too much energy. She almost cooked herself alive. If her readings are right, there's even some minor cell damage, but it should be fine given time. Bulma can also reprogram those restrictors and, if they want, make them available to them at a more conscious level. Lapis asks if that's why she was a bit off balance and, threw up all over Trunks. No, that's the last piece of news. Bulma looks at Trunks with a huge grin, then gives him a hug and says that she thinks congratulations are in order. Bulma's not a medical doctor, but Lazuli's not sick, per se. She's about 11 weeks pregnant. What? How? She's not, Oh dear, Bulma says. Well, you see, son, when a man and woman love each other... No, Mom, I know that. It's just they're... What? Machines? No, they're not. They've been genetically and physically rebuilt, sure, but they're still human. Or post-human? Meta-human, maybe? Whatever. All the, usual bits and pieces are still there and working normally. Lapis, first saying that this isn't awkward at all, then pats Trunks on the back and asks if everything is okay, given the overheating in the fight. But Bulma shrugs. Sorry, wrong kind of doctor. But there's still 2 heartbeats, though. Okay, so can she implement those changes? Well, the firmware's already been restored, but everything else? She'd prefer slightly more informed consent before going ahead with that. Once that new bootloader's installed, even Bulma will be locked out. So, what do you want to do, Lazuli? Bulma asks. Trunks and Lapis look over to see that her eyes are open. When Lazuli hears the news of her pregnancy, she also doesn't understand it. Bulma shakes her head again and starts with, when a man and woman love each other, but Lazuli interrupts, saying that it shouldn't be possible, not after what Gero did to them. Bulma just taps the screen, unmuting the sound. As Trunks clutches at Lazuli's hand, staring at the screen, a spectrum of worried looks play across his face. Bulma moves in next to him and says that she's not worried. He'll make a great dad, unlike some people. Oh, he'd almost forgotten about him. The momentary shift sends his senses out, seeking Vegeta's energy. What is he doing? He's fighting somewhere, far away. He's all alone, and fighting hard against what? What is that? Lapis then fills them in on Majin Buu. Dende, via Piccolo, had been pretty worried, talking about that thing. But what's that energy build-up? What is he thinking? That's too much. The ambient dust in the room starts to float up, shivering slightly, as the walls vibrate, almost imperceptibly. Trunks can only look at his mother. What is it? She asks. Dad is... No, he whispers as the dust drops from the room, and Goku pops into existence. He grabs hold of Trunks and looks for a moment at Lazuli and then Lapis. Both of whom stare back at him blankly, no trace of malice. He then vanishes with another slight wave, taking Trunks with him. Now in the world of the Kais, Trunks looks around, slightly dazed. Gohan is staggering about with, is that his sword? No, it's not his. It looks different. Ah, his is over there, propped up against a tree, next to the frowning Kibito Kai, who is still not entirely believing his recent death and resurrection by the Namekian Dragonballs. Someone's been a busy boy. Gohan sees them arrive and drags his sword over to them, gouging a furrow in the ground. This thing is something else, man. The Supreme Kai says he needs to train with it, and, well, Trunks is good with swords, so he could really use the help. At the first swing, Trunks' blade is knocked clean out of his hands by the sheer mass of the Z-sword. Well, this won't work. It'll break if they try too hard. Kibito perks up to laugh at this. These foolish mortals don't even know how to push their ki into things. Okay, Mr. Probably been alive longer than the human race. Chill out and show them how, why don't you? After a brief lesson, Trunks starts to pick it up, and something akin to that Zamasu-chopping spirit blade is born of Trunks' original sword. That, for the purposes of this narrative, was a gift from his now-dead future mum. They start slow, but quickly gain momentum as Trunks' confidence in his new ability grows. Gohan is growing in strength with each swing, while Trunks' control and focus grows to match. After a while, sticking strictly to their base forms, both of them start to falter. They're about to switch to Super Saiyan when Shin calls for a break, and while Kibito restores their energy and heals their torn muscles, Goku has a few swings of the impossibly heavy Z-sword. He chops up some trees and even a few rocks with relative ease. Now back at full and Zenkai'd strength, Gohan finds himself easily able to swing the blade around and offers it to Trunks. Oh, well, now Gohan has to learn about ki infusing, was it? Do they have the time? Shin thinks for a moment, then asks Trunks if he would object to having his blade upgraded slightly. Upgraded? How? He doesn't want it changed. Not outwardly. There is a metal, the strongest in the universe, Kachin. He can easily convert the blade and it would be nigh indestructible, if not a bit heavier than he's used to. Trunks isn't at all sure about this, but Gohan points out that their Bulma is constantly tinkering with things, always improving them. He's sure his would approve, wherever she is. Trunks agrees, and Shin shrugs off his confusion over where Trunks' mother is. She's clearly on Earth at the lookout. They could have just asked her. The change is instant, and the blade almost rivals the Z-sword in weight. With a much renewed fervor, they swing at each other. The only thing that saves Trunks from being decapitated was their mutually quick reaction, pulling away as they see Trunks' blade cleave cleanly through the Kai's. Shin and Kibito stare in disbelief as Trunks examines the stump. Maybe they should have turned them both into Kachin? But the Z-sword, you broke it, Shin shrills. Gohan points out that maybe the point was the training. They're both way stronger now, aren't they? Yeah, see, even in base they could swing both swords around with ease. They watch for a moment as Trunks performs a little experiment. He pushes his ki into his newly upgraded, but much heavier blade, and throws it. It spins off in a wide arc, plowing through one mountain, shifts direction, and into another. Then, totally ripping off Thor's intimate relationship with Mjolnir, he pulls his ki back to him, and his blade comes spinning back into his hand with a satisfying thunk. "Impressive," an old voice says from nearby. They look around curiously for the voice, and the wrinkled Elder Kai hems and steps into view. After Shin and Kibito pick their jaws up, they fill the Elder Kai in on the situation. As he then regales them with his many feats and general prowess, Goku, being Goku, ki blasts him in the face. They move quickly onto the whole potential unlock, and since it's technically Trunks who killed both Frieza and then Cell, he is chosen for the ritual, while Gohan and Goku practice ki infusion with Trunks' heavy Kachin upgraded blade and another cruder-looking copy that Shin materializes. Over on Earth, things are deteriorating. Boo and Bobbidi are having a great time. Boo, for one, is happily eating cake and turning things into cake, and then eating them. With Goku conspicuously absent and no Super Saiyan 3 to pique Boo's interest or Bobbidi's ire, the little wizard gets to live a little longer. However, his unending chiding and commands do start to grate on the pink blob though, and after rescuing, and eventually healing a certain puppy, Bobbidi has had enough. Blasting the puppy, he briefly faces a seething Boo. His anger disappears as he falls into Boo's hand, now a rather bland-looking biscuit. "Oh, I have a question. Does eating candy beam things effectively absorb them? In the series, when Boo zapped Deborah, he was munched on, and, well, that was that. No absorption occurred, and Deborah was later found to be dead. But then Evil Boo reflected Good Boo's attack and ate him, absorbing him and gaining his Super Boo form. So why wasn't Deborah in one of those sacks? Surely he had some useful power. Is it somehow selective? Or is it only a function of the Evil Boo to absorb things? First Kid Boo, clearly evil, absorbed the two Kais. Then Evil Boo and later Super Boo's absorption bargain sale. Maybe those two Kais were acting to prevent Boo from using that ability to gain more power. Anyway, the recent treat is not absorbed, granting Boo no additional magic powers. He chews up the biscuit, feeling little satisfaction in the act. The puppy, for just a moment, had been his friend? The recently dethroned Mr. Satan is also absent here, so can't explain things to Boo and keep his attention. He's not feeling particularly helpful after being embarrassed so much at the tournament. Boo's eventual separation comes at the hands of Piccolo, who finds him wandering about, cradling the body of the dog. He questions Boo about the crispy corpse, but gets little in response other than an angry glare. But Boo's not angry at the Green Man, he's angry at Bobbidi. He had a friend, and now he's gone. Arrgh! After they duke it out, Evil Boo of course turns Good Boo into a snack and consumes him, absorbing him as well. He now faces down Piccolo, who is no slouch, but is barely scraping at the levels of Grade 4 Super Saiyans. Super Boo is also a bit more aware, and he quickly sees Piccolo's keen tactical mind for what it is. Boocolo then flies off towards the lookout, where he sets upon the remaining Z-Fighters. They are not without their defenders, though, as both Lapis and a partially recovered Lazuli are there as well. Lapis dives in, drawing Boo's attention and curiosity at the weirdly powerless being. He takes him on a merry chase, ending up invariably in the Time Chamber's foyer. The warning from Piccolo's memories come too late, as Lapis fires on the door, sealing himself in there with the pink blob. Oh, Boo is pissed. He tricked Boo. And no more candy! Boo lays into Lapis, but finds his attacks being met blow for blow. Courtesy of Bulma's minor upgrade, his restrictors are now at his beck and call, and he quickly finds a good balance between heat and power. I think Lapis could even be pushing into the vicinity of a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, especially seeing the upgrade he receives later on in Super. He of course shows no signs of tiring, but then neither does Boo, whose regeneration is seemingly endless. This goes on for days, stretching into weeks of constant back and forth as Boo, drawing on Piccolo's intellect, tries to find cracks in Lapis's armor. But that intellect is proving to be a double-edged sword, as it has brought with it the twice-fused Namekian's fighting style, which dominates Boo's own. While Lapis is finding it fairly easy to predict his movements, Piccolo's tactical sense appears to be working hard to give Boo other options. But after nearly a month of constant, ceaseless combat and growing frustration, he decides that Piccolo has been tricking him, egging him on, working with this opponent? He discards the Namekian's guidance and decides to follow a more traditional path. He will take that inexhaustible power for his own. With that plan in mind, he quietly starts laying traps in the endless white void. You remember that Hell Zone grenade Piccolo used on 17? Yeah, that, except with Boo blobs. Having been lulled into complacency and utter boredom, Lapis had been running on automatic. He barely had time to notice the change in fighting style before those discarded globs fly at him from all sides, quickly surrounding him and pulling him into Boo. Boo screams out, initially in exhilaration from the well-earned win, but then, after gaining his bearings, again, this time in frustration at the fact that he's still stuck in the damn time chamber. And here we will bring Part 5 to a close. Bookalo's scream will certainly bring about a dimensional rift, but they were in there battling it out for quite a while. What will Boo find when he exits the chamber? More snacks, most likely. How pissed will Lazuli be when Lapis doesn't follow behind? Find out next time on Dragonball. What if time travel was a one-way ticket?